We're really have a panel of local artists, all of which are represented in this exhibition. So I'm super excited for this conversation today. I do want to first thank our sponsors for these exhibitions and programs. Our sponsors are Women Moving Millions, Charlevoix County Community Foundation, Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation, Comfort Keepers, Michigan Arts and Culture Council, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Yay. We have a lot going on for both these exhibitions in both galleries. These are part of our Graham 100 series, celebrating dance and movement and various things. So I encourage you, if you haven't had a moment to look through these exhibitions, to see some of the artwork from local and regional and national artists, as well as the artist Barbara Morgan. So we are going to get started. We have 3 local artists here today living and working in this area. So I'm going to introduce them, but then they're going to hopefully do most of the talking today. And we will have time for questions towards the end. But for a little bit, we'll just be having a conversation and just keep those questions to yourself for a bit. And then towards the end, we'll ask you for those. Okay. So we have, actually, I'm just going to let you all introduce yourselves because it'll, you can tell us more about yourself. So let's go down the line. Tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself and your path to becoming an artist. Oh boy. Okay. Lots of questions.
Good morning. I own Grandpa Shorter's Gifts downtown, Petoskey, and so I never set out to be an artist. I always took art classes through 8th grade, and then here in Petoskey, you have to be recommended to take art in high school, which I was, but I never had room in my schedule. So college prep classes and AP classes, etc. So never took the time to stop and take art classes, which adult. My notebooks are always full of doodles and things like that. And so a few years ago, there was an introductory to painting class here at Crooked Tree. And I took that class with a friend of mine, and it was 2 weeks of acrylic, 2 weeks of watercolor. Oil, and we did gouache, and then I really became enamored with all things art. So that's how I've become an artist.
Wow, that's terrific. My name is Lesley Pritchard, and
I can't hear you very well.
Is that Lesley Pritchard? There we go.
Yeah.
From the top, like I'm not.
That's okay.
Nonetheless, from my earliest memories as a child, I wanted to be an artist mainly because I had excellent art teacher in grade school, and later through high school, I had only 2 teachers during that period, and I worshiped them both. My path in art at that time, I was maybe a little unusual as a child, and being recognized by the art teacher and nurtured, I felt special. And I was able to overcome some obstacles during my young life, and went on to college as a fine art major. However, I parted from that and pursued a career in special education. And I tried to combine in the 70s a career degree in art therapy, which was non-existent. They had just started a music program at Michigan State and weren't prepared to do art, which is today tremendous, is essential. I'm grateful to the mentors and teachers that I've had, and to organizations like this that do, as Jennifer stated, make opportunities available to everyone to really move inside. Are fulfilled by it.
Landis, and I paint with oils.
I was very fortunate to be raised in a very art appreciative home. My mother was an artist, and from a young age, my parents took us to many art shows. We had many friends that were painters. Um, I remember going to the Charlevoix watching my art there when I was probably about 10. And there was an artist there, and she was probably high school or college. She seemed older to me. That's so cool. And she was painting while she had her booth, and I bought my first piece of art there, which hangs in my kitchen still. Oh, she worked with pen and ink and then watercolor over that, and it's this young girl at an easel from behind. And that really struck me, and I don't think I set out saying, oh, I'm gonna be an artist, but it said my mom being an artist. And so then I took a lot of art in high school and college as much as I could. And then I had a big lull in paintings. I was raising my family, the business. And when I was about 40, not quite 40, I said, when are you gonna get back to this? And, you wanna do this, do it. So in Glenelg, Illinois, and Wheaton was the town next door, and I worked with an artist for about 5 years straight. I was there once or twice a week, and then and it was all portraits. I did charcoal portraits for about 3 or 4 years, and then finally he'd let you go into paint. It was a very strict, very strict course. And one day I just showed up with paints because other people in the class had paint. I was like, I'm just gonna do this. He didn't say anything, just and let it go. But and there was also every Saturday they had live figure drawing. So I did that. So that really, kind of got me back into it quickly. But then one day I realized I don't like doing this, it was great training, but it's tedious work to make something look just like it. That's what we were taught to do. And so then I started painting, and most of my fingers now, the heads are just not even there, and I put them at the shoulders or from behind, and I try to say something with the core of the body and try to express that same emotion, and it makes it more universal. I hope it could be anyone, that you can see yourself in that figure perhaps. So anyway, I came up here about 10 years ago, jumped into a workshop right away, and I've taken a lot of workshops through here at Pritchard, so.
Thank you all. It's really great to hear just the varied ways that you all were introduced to art, but also how it's had such a meaningful impact on your life. And also it's always nice to hear how art centers had an impact on so many, because that's what we do here. So these exhibitions, they're centered around dance and movement. And so this one that we're in today, it is very much focused on movement. So my question is, how does the idea of a movement apply to your art practice every day? Or does it or doesn't it?
Why don't you start? Sorry.
Just you. Well, movement is very important to me in my work. I think I would use the word energy because I try to have that energy or movement even in a still seated figure or in a still life. And so the tools I use to do that, I really rely on the paint and the brush to help me. I use a lot of liquid in my oils so that brush can really move across the canvas. And sometimes, so because there's movement and energy in fabrics and in skin tone and in hair, so sometimes I don't fully mix the color on my palette. If I'm trying to create an energy on the canvas, so I might dip one end of it in a green or a yellow, make the other side in blue, and then just kind of let it rip, see what happens. It's a big leap of faith, doesn't always work, but with oils you can scrape it off. But oftentimes, it's like, yeah, just trust the paint, let it do its thing. And that's when it's really exciting, when it works. And then if I'm doing an object that has movement, like my painting over there, it's,
Which one is this?
the ballet, two ballet girls on the,
Okay.
the white tutus, that's my granddaughter on the left. So I want to, they were twirling around on stage, so I then will take the background color and drag it right through that tutu, just, so it, it moves that, or I hope it does, it looks like it, it moves through the background and try to bring those two movements together. Also, sometimes I'll just take, the still the object, not work the background, but on the subject, and just, you can use my brush or my thumb and just whoosh. And it shows movement, I guess it's kind of like the old cartoons, look up the lions behind the guy running down the street.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, I guess, that would be the simplified version of it, but I think it's that leap of faith of just trying to do it that way.
Movement. I think physically, I'm on my feet and moving while I'm working at an easel, and there's, like, generally that's the case and constantly moving. But in terms of the actual canvas work, I'm often thinking about the eye, the involved engagement of the viewer to that work. And I think that's critical. I also beliefs about the moment, every moment is changing and moving. Going into plein air painting, for example, that's a real challenge. And the light, all things are moving. So trying to find that moment that you can seize upon and try to share that. My two paintings are the Native Americans, and when the theme was announced, I was, all caught up in every moment of our lives, and I was like, I've been wanting to do these painting sketches, because I do love the powwow, and there's so much there, and their approach to movement too is a life force as well. So I thought I was going to do this, and I was able to complete two, and I was delighted that they were accepted into this show.
Lovely answers. Thank you, ladies. I don't know that I have a really good answer. However, so I have replaced ski racing with my painting. So I was a ski racer pretty much my entire life. I've had 2 hip surgeries, so I can no longer ski race. So I started with art to replace that in motion, right? You're constantly in motion. And so I've been working on my muscle memory of painting and getting looser, because that's really how I express movement, is by being loose with my paintbrush. And I did this abstract over here. It's the second one down on the left here. And so to me, when I do an abstract, that is really my movement coming through, and I make sure I'm standing up and working at an easel, just like you said. And so that's not a great answer. However, that's what I've got. So
I think that's a fantastic answer. And again, it's just so lovely to hear like the varied ways that we, come to movement. Like you all have different practices. You all have different ways of making. So I do have a question, just to kind of look a little bit into the way that you all make. What does your typical day of art making look like? If you could, I know that typical is a heavy word because not everything's typical. But what does that look like? Maybe we can start with Lesley this time.
Thank you. Typical, I think you captured that. There is no typical day. Life gets in the way. And as a solo homeowner, I'm always competing for chores and whatnot, but I wake up every morning wanting to create, to get to the easel, or to do some piece of art. What's the question again?
What is a typical day of art making?
Typical day.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, I wake up wanting to, and looking forward to the opportunity to pursue my passion in the arts. And it could be, you know, a commitment to get out and plein air painting with a group, just simply commit to be there when I can. But it could be late at night. I don't like to go inside when it's still daylight. And so I may not get there until dark 30, and it could be near morning sometimes when I step away and then revisit things. So my clock has no hands.
Sharon has that energy. A typical day. I've become more of a studio painter. I do some plein air, but not so much, so that's kind of, actually, that's more spur of the moment, like what it looked like today kind of thing. But if I'm gonna be know that I'm gonna be in the studio, I will get I would like to have an idea of where I'm headed the night before and think about it a lot and get my photos together or set up a still life, whatever it is. Sketch it out in the morning, right after coffee. I do very loose sketches, but that's really where all the work goes. Getting, especially with figures, because the human eye can tell if there's something off, you know, if the arm's too long or too short, the eyes are whatever. So I spend a lot of time doing that, and then I stop and I take care of whatever we have to do, you know, yard work, housework, bills. And come back to it then in the afternoon with a fresh eye, because, and that's when I can paint, that's the fun part, it's when you start painting, so. But there are lots of times where the painting isn't too large, I'll throw it in the freezer if I started painting it, because I like to do wet paint into wet paint. And if you freeze it, you can come back to it the next day and it's as if you never left, so that's.
Fascinating.
The same with palettes. Yeah. If you want to preserve your well palette.
Thank you, I like those tips. So I work a full-time plus job, but my New Year's resolution for the past 3 years has been to practice art a minimum of 1 hour a day. So sometimes that, if I'm in a bunch of meetings, that can be like where I'm sketching out ideas for paintings during a meeting. That's what I'm doing. But it also, every night when I get home, I am intentional about making sure that I'm doing something art related. So that could be drawing and sketching in front of the TV, or it can be in front of my easel. And sometimes an hour turns into 4 or 5. I always take a watercolor set with me when I travel, and I will set up in a hotel room and paint. And I'm sorry, the poor housekeepers come in the next day and it's just covered with like little sketches that I've done with watercolor, you know. So yeah, that's my practice every day.
That's great. Yeah. I wish I did that every day. Inspiration for me, for sure. Yeah, and like one of my questions was gonna be like balancing art making and life, and you all really talked about that, because it, you know, it is a commitment. If you want to be an artist, if you want to pursue that, like you know, have to figure out ways to balance and make it happen. Because if you want to be an artist, it's part of you and you need to do that. So it's really great to hear everyone's the things that you do to make it happen, and we appreciate you for sharing your heart with us. So besides like you know, some of the challenges of daily life with being an artist, how do you navigate periods of creative block or self-doubt? Who wants to go first?
I'll skip. So I think part of it is when I do sit down to do art, I spend 5 minutes making ugly art, right? Which somebody taught me in a class is to just get it out, right? And it could be scribbles, it could be anything, but sometimes it turns out, but a lot of times it's just icky, right? Like, and that's okay. It's like, now I've gotten that crap out of the way, right? But then, you know, Jennifer Tobias taught me that there's 3 stages of art where you're like, this is going to be awesome. And then this is horrible. And then this is shit. And there's really 4. And then like, oh, this might turn out. So that's daily. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I think you touched on it there, it's believing, once you put a brush to a canvas or a pencil or something, you're pursuing something, I think, or I am. And, in the process, I might really love the composition of art that I made. It's holding the faith and believing that it's gonna end up somewhere. Whether it's in a stack of other unfinished canvases or drawings or what have you, but it's the process for me and just having faith and believing that where I'm going is okay. And I'll end up there and maybe come back and revisit something and go from that. But the self-doubt throughout my life, I guess it wasn't a question necessarily. It's yeah. That's a little difficult one for me to answer, thanks.
I think finding self-doubt is can be huge sometimes, and you don't want to get stuck there for too long, but sometimes you can. I read this quote one time, it's called an art attack. When you have too many ideas swirling around, you can't decide on one, and then you're just paralyzed. That happens to me. So I have started daily sketching. I do that in the morning, like coffee, just 5 minutes. It's usually my own. But that helps just to kind of get you going and that's fine. But I think one thing I heard, I think it's a common thread. From what I understand, a lot of artists, the self-doubt or going through a long stretch, what you feel like is a long stretch of not successful. And I ran into an artist who I really admire, love their work, I think absolute world of them. And just like, I just spent 2 days in the studio and I ripped everything up. And I was like, oh, I know how awful that feels. And I turned around and I was like, it's not just me. I mean, that helped me more than anything to realize, because you're in your studio alone and you can just, I can just go down the drain sometimes. So hearing that, that still helps me now. I'm like, yeah, okay, there can be days like that.
Thank you for being open. I know that's a tricky question for sure. So with that, like overcoming self-doubt, as an artist myself, I know that sometimes it can be tricky to know when you're finished with a piece. So what are some ways that you know when a piece is finished?
Well, so I have my daughter's voice in my head, like, really, you're gonna add that? I don't think so. So I usually stop when I'm like, would Caitlin say I'm done? Yeah.
Done. That's an interesting, brings to mind a tip or an approach that an instructor I had years ago said that you're working on something and you have your number one patron, your someone who's coming to purchase this. Maybe it was a commission, I'm making all this up, but the point was is that they're on their way. And what is the next most critical thing you can do that you need to do to fix or to complete this in that process? And so I revisit that a lot. I mean, quite often. I mean, it's with me. It's like, when you're nearing the end, but you're not quite there and you see something you need to attend to in the shadow or in the highlight or what, you go like, but they're coming, they're knocking at the door or they're coming up the steps. So you gotta be really, really focused on what's the most critical next thing. And in other situations, maybe it's not gonna be finished for a while, or maybe it's done. I often go past the point. I like where I am in the process. I think I've got the composition and things are working well, and then I just go to mud, or not always in oil, I'm making other mediums as well. And then I lose it, I kill it. And then maybe I can recover it, maybe I can. Love that first part. I'm gonna use
don't, just, I know you're having fun, but just take a minute here, step back. And come back later, you know, I really step away, which is hard to do. And then there's time, like, oh, you know, add that one little colored notch that is just pops, like, oh, that worked, and then, oh, I'll try it again over here, and I, no, that wasn't right at all, shouldn't have done that. So, yeah, just trying to stop, because it's hard to fix, I think, in oils if you work it sometimes, unless you scrape it all off.
And that's so true, and I returned to acrylics, which in high school, we went, as you did, through different mediums, and when it came to painting, we had a choice between oil and acrylic. And quite frankly, I couldn't afford the oils, and acrylic was a relatively new thing, I mean, it's plastic, and there were a lot of questions about it, but it's very forgiving, and I have painted in acrylics throughout the years. And this winter, I did more studio work in acrylic, which I'm just loving again because it is forgiving. And the oil was something that I began through Paint Grand Traverse after attending the Paint Grand Traverse the first year, and seeing these artists working mainly in oil, some pastel, watercolor, all of it. I was blown away. And I said, okay, they're doing it in short order, but it's a very challenging media, and I'm beginning to get a handle on it as a medium to use.
Kudos to you for using oil. I don't have the patience for it, like,
Yeah,
waiting for
it's
things to
tough.
dry and stuff like that. No, my ADHD is too strong for that.
Yeah.
So I'm in acrylic, because I could have 6 paintings going at one time some days.
I love it. Yeah.
Great, yeah, oil is a whole different thing. You've all touched on this a little bit throughout our conversation, but is there an artist mentor or teacher that you think of when you think of somebody who significantly influenced your work or your arts career?
Would anybody like to start?
Mentors. Clearly, as I stated, my art teacher in grade school, I just worshipped her. And in junior high and high school, Richard Wolfgang, some of you may know, may have known him. Master watercolorist and fabulous teacher, radical fellow. Art was the coolest place to be, and I ended up as a senior. We didn't have those advanced programs where you go to college, you get credits. So I had 6 hours in the art room with Dick Wolfgang. We just call him Wolfgang. I mean, my dog Wolfgang, one way else. But you may know him. He had a gallery on Mackinac Island, did the watercolor posters for many years. And so as in school, I did watercolors and acrylics. But definitely Wolfgang. And there are other artists here in the area. Marion McKay was no longer with us, but she, even when she was bedridden, she was painting on the ceiling. I mean, she was prolific, and she was this little dynamite down the Jordan Valley. She and her husband Basil. In fact, I curated a show here 10, 15 years ago here, and Jordan River, and there were like 3 places of her work, just powerful. And then she did giant canvases, abstracts, and phenomenal. So I give credit to her being an inspiration, as well as so many other great artists and those in our area who are offering classes and give you the opportunities to learn from them their process and approach.
Well, first, my mentor I have to say, was my mom. She was an oil painter and worked mainly in landscape, and she painted, till she was 91. I mean, just days before she passed away, she was still painting, which is really inspiring. I think that's one of the best things about art is you can do it your whole life. You know, it's wonderful, and I love that's ahead of me. We used to critique, I do miss her critiques. We would, we'd both be painting during the day and bring our paintings down to her living room or drink. And then we'd go at it at each other, and but it was good. It was really good. It was fun. But as far as there's an artist, her name is Michelle Torres, she's, in the Denver area, and I admired her work for years. I think when I first got back into it at about 40, and at 50, I went to Taos, New Mexico, to a week-long workshop with her. She's the one that really, taught me about brushwork and movement. I credit her with that. As far as, like, master painters, John Singer Sargent, this, what he does with fabric, just, it's wild. It's abstract when you look at it up close, then you come back and it's this shimmering satin, and I can't figure out how he does it.
Thank you. So one would be Kathy Phelps, who lives in Petoskey, and she was my art teacher in middle school, and she encouraged me to continue with my art. And unfortunately, I didn't listen the first time around. And that also would be Jennifer Tobias. So Jennifer had stores here in Petoskey and Bay Harbor, and then successfully left retail and became a full-time artist. And so I take all the classes that she offers. She's usually at Pritchard in Traverse City. And last year, I took a tour with her to France for 10 days on an art retreat.
It's great. Thank you. So we're talking about like past art, present. So let's talk a little bit about future. So how do you continue learning and growing as an artist? What are some ways that you look to the future?
Well, I continue to take classes, so anything that interests me, I sign up for because I figure that I can learn something and then I'm gonna take away many things usually. And I think art is constantly evolving. And if I look at things that I did 3 years ago that I thought were amazing, now I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, no, now I'm cutting that stuff up and turning it into collage. So I think art is always evolving, just like all of us, right? If you have a growth mindset, which hopefully everyone in this room does, because you're here learning, listening to other people talk about their processes. I think it'll just continue to grow and evolve.
Ditto. I think lifelong learning is really, where it's at. We never stop. I don't think, you know, it's so much a part of, everyday life is learning from others around us. I just spent last week as a volunteer down in Traverse City, being Grand Traverse. And as I said earlier, that inspired me to get into oil, seeing what they were doing, what these artists were able to produce and to master in this intense environment and under so much pressure. So it's very open. I mean, not only were there demos throughout the week, each day in different medium. Every day there was a free demo. And there was also workshops. I've chased the national organizations to some of their annual conventions around the country, from Western Montana with American Impression Society. We just were down in Saugatuck. You have the opportunity to attend these and be surrounded by a culture of like-minded people, and just it's a wonderful community. And where I live so isolated, and as an artist, we are isolated. I find this to be my tribe, and I learn from them every day.
I would have to agree. I think being in a like-minded community, it really helps. Like even this morning, all kinds of great tips. And I think that's what, Crooked Tree offers, and certainly art centers throughout my life. It just, it's a wonderful place to connect with artists and learn from each other. It's great. And I think, in the meantime, though, when you're by myself, I study works that I love, and just try to analyze how did they get there? How did they do that? Which is really fun. But moving forward, I've been playing with abstracts, large canvases out, and I haven't shown anybody yet, but it's fun, I'm trying that. So, I don't know, you have to stay curious, I guess. Yeah, stay positive.
Yes, I love that. Stay curious and keep coming to coffee at 10, right? So we talked a lot about art, but do any of you find inspiration? Hobbies or anything that, you know, really interests you that's not art as art focused or might spill into your art career a little bit? We're, you know, we're all dynamic people, so what do you think?
I think I just find inspiration from all sorts of things in life, right? But I'm looking at your t-shirt. I love the sunrise or sunset with the Petoskey stones, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, so anyway, might see that later. What was your question? See, lost it.
Oh, no, you're good. Where do you find inspiration, like outside?
T-shirts.
Yeah.
Yes, t-shirts,
T-shirt,
right?
yeah.
Product that comes into the store. Gosh, views of the bay, right? Like I'm constantly painting the brick wall and painting the, you know, the clock tower and what I see from my office at work every day. And so I think just all around us.
Inspiration, I think everywhere I look, the perspectives on where we live, it's just beautiful. My inspiration is nature, of course, being out in the environment, and I think that's why I'm not strictly a plein air painter, and it's kind of a new thing in the last 8 or 9 years. But it is combining both, being in nature and seizing the moments that you see and trying to capture something from that as a personal experience. But the inspiration, yeah, that's I guess my simple answer.
Yeah, I would have to agree that, nature, you know, really inspires things. I think the way the light falls on anything, whether you're in a room or outside, is just fascinating, and I assume that everybody looks at it the same way. I think we probably do, but as an artist, you're always like, look at that shadow it's casting. So it's like, it never like leaves you. I have so many photos of landscape things, and I don't paint them, I don't know why, but it's very inspiring. But I think, you know, just being in nature and people, you know, I think that's fascinating too. I love doing figures, so. I do have a lot of, you know, photos of people walking by. So,
Yes, and you're focused on the figure and human figure, which is an early thing for me. And when I started at Michigan State, I loved working. Human figure was really where I was at for me largely, and I did the fine art program because I was too academic according to my instructors, and I'm really looking forward to getting back. And I do some portraits and some of that as well. I challenge myself in all these different areas, and I haven't ever buttoned myself into a corner and being only oil or acrylic or what. I try different mediums and different subjects. It's all a process of learning.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always nice to hear what, you know, interests artists outside of just art.
And we brought it all back.
Yeah, we brought it always comes back around. Yeah. It's into art. So this is a question that I ask a lot of artists. But what is your definition of success in the arts? Like, is there some like a North Star that you look to? And how does that change over time? Who wants to go first? Anybody?
You're all looking at me. All right, we'll give Jennifer. How does my
What's your definition of success?
definition?
How's it changed?
Success. I can't say that I really ever measure myself up to having success per se. It's a very personal thing in terms of, you know, expressing myself in a visual way, whether it's 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, or otherwise. I'm losing my train of thought. Success, to me, it's not my ego that needs that success. It's really a sense of validation. And I think more recently, I've had some success in selling my work. So as I said, it's a sense of recognition that I think we all appreciate in some way. separate from our egos, totally, to me. And that also rewards me in a way that I can pay for my materials and, the investment that we all make and that sort of thing. So I think that does provide a sense of success to me, in some regard.
Yeah, yes, there is a validation when somebody wants to actually buy. But I get most, the only paintings I keep really for myself are, sometimes they're not even finished, but sometimes they are, and it's usually when I was trying something new, and I call it like breakthrough painting, like, and other people might not see it, like I'll throw it out to my family, and they're like, oh, you really like that, and I'm like, don't you get it? They're like, no, okay, that's okay, because it was successful for me for what I was trying to do, and I tried to upgrade that, but, yeah, and then something I used to say, well, at the end of the day, I'm cleaning my brushes, so that's a success today. So I've never, complained about having to clean up, stuff, and I clean, so.
I will add, just being asked to participate in this panel is quite significant to me too. And I thank you for that opportunity.
So being a newer artist, I really have to push myself to get out there and put my things in the public sphere because I'm sure everybody's heard of imposter syndrome, although I had to explain it to my husband a couple weeks ago, and he has never experienced it. But so at the beginning, I would be like, oh, no one would want to see this. No one would want to own this. No one would put that on their wall, right? And so I have put myself out there. I post on Facebook fairly regularly my art, but also I enter shows like this one, right? And so to just be on the wall to me is winning, right? That to me is exciting. And if my name is like on a wall, oh my word, I'm giddy. So yeah, that to me is the mark of success, just to be invited into the room.
That's very good. Yeah, thank you. I love that question because, sometimes the definition of success changes while someone's telling us their definition of success. It's always changing and we all have different thoughts on that. So thank you for your openness to share. So we're going to wrap up this portion with one last question and then we'll open it up to the room for questions if you all have any. But looking back, what advice would you give yourself, your younger self?
This is an easy answer for me, is to not stop creating, just keep doing art.
Likewise, just keep the faith, stay on the path, whatever moments you can find to unleash that little spirit that drives us. Some of us, most of us, I think we all have that within us, and whether we can hang on to it and pursue that.
I think I would tell my younger self to buy cartons of really cheap canvas board and play more. Now, don't worry about the finished painting. I think I get hung up on that sometimes, and so playing with it is really important because that's how you grow and learn. So just not getting stuck in the day.
Great, thank you so much. I'm gonna open it up to if anyone has any questions for these lovely artists.
Where do you get your supplies? Where do you go, where do you get them? And what types of things do you get? I mean, what do you recommend?
And I'm gonna repeat the question in here for those on Zoom. Where do you get your supplies? What kind of supplies do you get?
So I order a lot of things from Blick Art.
Like, okay,
And then also whenever I'm in Chicago, I go to Blick Art. And I have a mom who is very concerned about my mental health and
Okay,
my stress level. And so anytime I want art supplies, I just hand her a catalog with some things marked. And so right now my shower, and I have a shower in my laundry room, it is full of boxes of canvases from 2 Christmases ago.
okay, okay.
Yes, living here in northern Michigan, it is a bit of a challenge to have an art supply available to us. We've lost even Traverse City, some as well. But I unfortunately do resort to online Jerry's Artorama. If you've never heard of it, Jerry's Artorama is pretty amazing. They have regular sales that are often irresistible. I just have to skip the email that says, you know, closing tonight, but there will be another one. So canvas, paints, all of it. And they have other distribution centers, so they can get really quick delivered. And there are others linked, but depending on where you are, if you can. I went to Hawaii and I ended up at a drugstore buying, you know, some paints, because I was like, I think volcano was erupting, I've got to capture this or something. So we're finding, but I do have to resort to several online sources. And frames are another thing. There are some framers, JPF is one. Oh, there are several. So do your Google search. Your I'm sorry, that's the way we live up.
Yeah, you have to do online. I love Jerry's Artorama.
Yeah.
I think, it comes quickly, and I like, Gamblin, which we saw here. I like Gamblin paints. There's a selection of oil paints on there.
Gamblin's my go-to, but
Gamblin and Rembrandt. I like those two. It's interesting though, I remember when I first started in oils, I said, oh, they were talking about the different colors of different brands. I was like, Living Crimson is a Living Crimson. Well, it's not. So like on my palette, I use Gamblin Cat lights and also a Rembrandt. One is very orange and one is more red, but you get different things. So yeah, Jerry's is my.
yeah, and any have long hours too. You can call by phone and place your orders. Answer all the questions. They're very not a paid staff for them, but I can answer your question in any short way.
Regarding framing, for those of you who need something framed locally, Juniper Framing, which is inside August, she does a beautiful job. And she's very mindful of what something costs and helps in all sorts of ways.
It's inside where?
It's inside August, which is next to Happy's Tacos. Does everybody know that Happy's has moved, right?
No, on Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Park Avenue. Yeah. Random side fact, in 1947, my grandfather had a store in about the same place as August, just for one summer.
It's a wonderful place and the room is adjacent and I forget about that. For custom
She's
framing, I
in-
haven't
yeah.
used the,
She does a beautiful job.
custom framing is another animal.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah.
I'd just like to ask you, what was your elementary teacher, art teacher's name?
Jackie Russell.
Jackie Russell. We lift Jackie Russell up because I'm retired elementary teacher. And you kept saying how much, just at that young age.
Oh, yeah.
Someone affected,
Yeah.
I just think that's super powerful.
I have goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh,
not
Jackie.
Jackie Russell. And I later learned, I left northern Michigan in the late 70s, moved to big city, Dallas, and self-employed, had business and all over. And I came back. I mean, I always came home, but I literally moved back and found out that she was living in the Traverse City area. Wolfgang's wife, Helen, who's living here now, we had lunch. She said, you know, Jackie's in the area. And she was leaving, she was moving away, and she was going to California to be with her kids. She's elder, of course. And I was brokenhearted. I couldn't meet with her again and let her know how much she'd changed my life. One thing that I do recall as a moment that really was pivotal. I was like in 3rd grade And she asked me if I would be willing to set up during a parent-teacher conference in the hallway. And I don't remember what I tried to do, but I was shy and I was, kind of odd. But I was like, wow, she really wanted me to do this. And I thought, thank you, that and Wolfgang inspiring me and others. He really pushed us to enter competitions and do things. And I was entered into Michigan Arts Council thing in high school and won an award for a painting. And I went like, thank you, Wolfgang. So it was, I haven't been able to be so involved in my work until recently. Unfortunately, I'll get gray and we go like, oh, how long am I going to be able to be around to do this? But it was my teachers, and yet I didn't really want to be a teacher in college. I just wanted to do it. And yet I ended up as a teacher in special ed because that was another love that I had, was protecting and guarding others and caring for others. So, yeah. A lot of twists and turns.
Any other, yes?
I have just a basic question. Do you ever have a memory of a painting that you did, that you sold or gave away and you wish you had?
Do you have a memory of a painting that you sold or gave away? Do you wish you had it? Anybody?
I do not at the moment. Too new, I think.
I do, there are a few that, and so she plays in them, so. Because as an artist, you always own the copyright to the painting, so, yeah, along with my band, she plays, so I have one in that one. It's usually something I learned from, that's why I've been something. But it's always thrilling to have someone buy it. So.
No regrets. I want my work to find a home somewhere. And I live in a very small one bed home and more windows than walls. And though I want to support the other artists, I have a bit of trouble with that. But in terms of my work out in the world, it's interesting when I once again inspired by looking used to exhibit in the Flint Art Fair as in high school, and I sold more watercolors and made more money than I did babysitting. And I thought, this is great, and so in answer to your question, I received a package a couple of years ago after, we're talking 60, 50 years or something more, and with this lovely letter from a classmate whose mother had bought one of my watercolors. And she said, my mother died, but this watercolor went with us, with her, to every home that she had. And she sent it back to me. And I was like, and it's hanging on my wall. And then there was one other, actually it was the watercolor looking inspired me. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, that's lovely. Love those stories. Any other questions? All right, so two things. So we're talking to working artists today. So while they're inspired by many things, just always remember that supporting artists and art is important so that they can continue to create. So there are pieces of their work and others that are for sale here. So shameless plug, if you want one of their pieces on your wall, you can have it. And then lastly, to wrap it up, question for each of you. What's next? What do you have going on right now? Any shows, anything exciting you want to share?
So I am working on expanding my skills of being able to paint in public. And so last summer I entered 2 different plein air paint contests, one in Charlevoix and one here in Petoskey, and I will be doing those again. And meanwhile, I am attempting to plein air paint once a week. I have not this summer. I did it once on Mackinac Island, which if you want to become with a lot of people paying attention to you, paint to Mackinac Island.
And I find that to be true with the plein air painting. There are several groups in the area that are part of plein air painters with each of these organizations. Crooked Tree and Charlevoix Circle of Arts and Jordan River Arts Council. So they do like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings. If you can't join them, that's fine. It's just come as you may, but I try to pick up one of those each week somewhere if I'm, I do that. But I've also been striving to submit to these exhibits as they come, and there are so many. And as a result, I actually had 2 commissions. I had 1 commission last year and 1 this year that I'm working on right now. So that's validation too. It's gotta get back to the easel. I thought I was gonna do that last night and I didn't. Maybe later today.
Well, currently I'm finishing up a few commissions, and I really feel like I need to get those done. I told them I would. And then I'll get back to some more fun things. So my grandchildren always come and they come with friends too. And we always paint. So I've got 6 or 7 easels that we set up in the garage, and it's one of their favorite things to do. So I'm gonna get ready to do that. That's when I kind of got into, I should paint in folks too. So I'm gonna get back to it a little bit. So good.
And Connie's so cool.
Great, thank you so much for your graciousness to share so much about your life and your career. I mean, it's so important to share these things with the world so we can all learn about you and your art. And I learned a lot today, and so hopefully everybody else did. But thank you to Jennifer, Lesley, and Connie for your time today. Great, have a good Thursday, and we'll see you next time.